Hi Ornella and Mickey. I just want to create this video to get comment from you guys as the water specialists and engineers. So what we're going to do is try and come up with a system or a way to identify the best potential for a site, or the position for the sites. So I've got a couple layers added to this project, and the site priorities layer is the most recent one that we've created, using the households, the elevation, the access with the OpenStreetMap layer, as well as the resource potential. So based on those layers, we've created the site priority, and that video was probably the last one, or maybe 2 videos ago I sent that to you. So if you want to see how I created that, you can go and look at that again. And then also I've created an identifier field, identifier layer, and I'll show you how that works. And then you have also got your clusters layer, which is made up using the service area grid, and attached to that you've got the number of well points required per cell, and then you've got your greater cluster area where you're trying to get a number of systems between 20 and 30 with an average of 25. So I don't have the most recent service area grid. Remember, you guys have gone and numbered all the clusters and grouped them. I don't have that, so you guys have that, so you'll need to add that to your project. But anyway, so this video is for us to kind of try and figure out if this is the best way forward, and I'd maybe just like your comment on how I'm thinking about this. But your expertise are going to start surpassing mine with regards to the best position for a site, etc. And you'll need to kind of figure that out amongst yourselves. And I would suggest you heavily involve John as well in that initial process. And then once you get going, you can crack off and start identifying all the sites. But anyway, so what do we need? We need a layer which is going to be the actual site layer. So I want to create a new layer, and it's going to be a point layer. So where am I going to put it? I'm going to just stick it on my desktop. No, I'm not. I'm going to put it in my projects folder. Actually, let's do it differently. I don't know if you guys have ever done something this way, where you actually use your browser to create a new layer. So I'm just going to create a new layer in here. So I'm going to go new shapefile. And then that way I don't have to browse through that whole series of steps. I can just go in here and call this new sites. Okay, you call this what you like, but I imagine you probably won't use this name, but this is just an example. I'm going to use the same coordinate reference system as the UTM zone 35 south, and now I just need to add a couple of names, or a couple of columns. So my first column is going to be site ID, and that is going to be a text field, and I don't suspect it's going to be longer than 20, so I'm going to say add to field list. And then my next one is going to be system. Okay, now this can be let's make it 50. Okay, so this system will be whether it's a hand pump, whether it's solar, what type of pump it is. So you'll put that in here. And then also, what else can we have? We can go households. Okay, so maybe this can be number of households that this particular system will service. Okay, and then there's one that John and I discussed called confidence. Have I spelled that right? Confidence. And it's going to be text, and we can make that 10. Okay, there's only going to be 3 values you can put in here, maybe a 4th, I guess, but those are high, medium, and low. So what level of confidence do you have as the consultant or the specialist that this site that you have chosen, based on your knowledge and then also the layers that we've got, do you have that will be the final site? So if you tell the engineer you've got high confidence that that's a good site, then they know going in there that they're probably going to drill there. So I guess it's a matter of you guys. It's maybe objective, but it's going to be based on your experience. What sort of level of confidence do you have that site is a good one? Okay, so confidence high, medium, and low. And then possibly something I just thought of, memo. If you need to just say anything else about the site, you can include a memo field where you just type out whatever you need. Access is slightly restricted due to this or that, or terrain is a bit rough, but we suspect that it's a good site anyway, you know, that kind of thing. So maybe just some text, and you don't have to have anything. If it doesn't merit having extra text, don't write any text, but maybe just a field that will just give you an opportunity to explain something about the site if necessary. So I'm just going to add that. And then last one, what are we going to call this? I'm just going to call this number. Okay, it's going to be text, and it's only going to be 2. You'll see why in a moment, and I'm going to say add that. Okay, all right. So, and you can call that something else, but you'll see why I do this now. So let's say okay, and if we go back to our layers, we should now have a new. Oh no, we haven't added it yet. Okay, so I just need to add new sites to my view. There we go. Now we've got a new little layer, and now that is going to be the actual the site, so the site that we choose. So let's make it something that we can see. So maybe what color would be a good one? It's going to be a well point, so maybe let's make it like a blue, and let's just say fine. Let's just work with that for now. Okay, so there's my new site. So there's none yet because we haven't digitized any. So the last thing I want to do is I just want to create a default value for that last field that I created called num. Okay, so now this is basically the initial ID. So I guess we can call it num ID. Okay, and the default value is going to be 0, 1. Okay, all right, and that is all good. So we can say okay. Right, so now this is where you guys are going to come into your own here, and I think this is going to be a fairly manual process, and John mentioned that as well. He doesn't mind if this is quite a manual process. We have already automated or done a spatial analysis using those 4 layers to create the site priority layer, so that is going to help us identify the site. So let's say we zoom in here and we're looking to identify a well point or a number of well points within this cell. So first of all, what we could do is we could just check on the service area grid and just see for that area, I guess we need 5 wells are required. You could even label these to make things easier. So let's just go and do that. I'm going to go label. We'll make it. We'll draw the text buffer. I'm just going to change the color so that it stands out slightly from everything else. We're just going to give it like a dark blue color buffer. Okay, there we go. And then because black and blue don't stand out nicely, we'll just make the text a yellow, and then make it slightly bigger, and then maybe Arial and bold. And bold, and then just make sure we choose the value, which is the linked wells required. Okay, all right, so we know that that particular cell needs 5 systems based on the previous query that we did. I think that was the most recent video that I created where I showed you how to link John's values from his Excel spreadsheet to the service area grid, and then you went ahead and selected and identified the clusters. Alright, so if we need 5 well points inside this cell, there's a couple things to bear in mind. I guess spreading them out would help with regards to access to the various households. But let's start off by just identifying the most obvious one, which is this block here, 57. Now, we can just remember and bear in mind how we ranked the individual cells per 16 kilometer grid. So this blue area here is the 16 kilometer grid. Is we only ranked and rated the cells or the neighboring cells within each parent cell. So each of these 64 cells within a parent grid can only be rated compared to each other. So we've got 57 there and then 54 here. We may find that 54 is actually a better option than 57 because they are in different grids. We don't compare the two to each other. Okay, that's just how we set it out, and you know, that's just the process that we went through in creating the site priority layer. But what we'll do is and that's, I guess, where you're going to need your own intuition as to which is the best possible site. But let's start off by adding a new site here. And the one thing I want to do is just add a couple other layers. Now we've already determined, based on the elevation, which was a 90-meter SRTM, the access, which is the OpenStreetMap layers, the most recent OpenStreetMap layers, the resource potential, which is the original one from the geological layer, not the geological layer that we most recently got, but the resource potential layer, which probably came from a geological layer at some point. And what was the other one? It was households, which you guys have created. So those four determinants have already allowed us to rank them. So we don't need to add, well, possibly don't need the roads, etc. We've all got that. But a layer to help out might be something like a satellite image, maybe the Google hybrid. Okay, that'll give us something to work with. Then also one which I quite like is the OpenStreetMap topological map. Now I like this one because it has got the contours as well as rivers and the roads. So that's quite a nice one because you can see where the valleys and then the hills are, etc., or the peaks. So let's zoom into 57 and just locate the best site for our first well point. Okay, so if we're taking 57 as the best option, and then and this is also, you know, you could maybe say, okay, 57 is great because it ticks all the boxes, but this is actually a better site. Logically speaking, this is a better position for our well point based on your knowledge. So you can, this is where you need to start making those decisions. So let's just say, for instance, that we put our well point here. So I'm going to go new sites, start editing, and I'll put my well point there. Okay, now you'll see my default value, number ID, has come through. Okay, and that is going to come into when we create the site ID, and I'll do that in the next step. So this ID we don't need to fill out, but for the first one it might be 0. Households we're also going to leave open for now. Level of confidence. Okay, we got a fairly high level of confidence that this is going to be the correct site or the right site. I'm going to make this lowercase, so my confidence is high because there aren't that many other cells. There's only 2 blue cells, so maybe we just choose this one as high. Memo, I don't have anything to put in here, so let's just say okay. So there we go. So there's our first site. Okay, do we need a couple others? Now this is kind of where you guys need to decide. Now, how are we going to do this? Are you going to spread them out? Do we need 5 systems for this particular cell? In which case, are you going to try and spread them out? So I kind of need your feedback here, and maybe discuss it with John. Involve him heavily if you like. I suggest you probably do, just to kind of go through this process and decide if this is going to be the best way forward. So let's go and identify a new well point, maybe down here. Okay, that's a bit of a hill. This one's quite high. Maybe down here next to the river. Don't want to be too close to the river in case it's on a floodplain, let's say. If we turn on the satellite image, there's quite a lot going on here. Quite a high population density. So that might affect where you want to put the site. Let's say, for instance, we decided, okay, let's just turn this on again. Okay, we can't put it there because there's a whole lot of houses there. And you can turn on your household layer as well if you like. I'm just going to flick on let's say we put it down here. So let's say our second point is going to be there. Okay, there we go. There's my default value again. And like I said, you don't need to name these. We can get to these later. But then the confidence, we're not too sure actually. So we have medium confidence in that particular site. Let's say okay. Okay, so now we've got two sites, and let's say you went ahead and this is what you were doing. You were just capturing sites as you went, and then at some point we need to use the unique identifier, or we need to assign a unique identifier to these sites. So we can do this. We can stop editing and then use this field here, or this layer. I'm going to open up this layer is identical to the site priority layer, except for the fact that I've removed a whole lot of the excess columns, and I've added a new column, and that is the unique identifier field or column. And that, just turn it on, that is based on the province that it's in, the hexagonal ID or the hexagon that it falls inside, as well as the child cells, which is the combination of the parent cell number and then the 1 to 64 number that it falls in. And then we get this identifier, and now all we need to do is add the number of the actual site, which by default was 01, and 01 implying that that is the first site. If for instance that site was the wrong site and it didn't work out and you needed to have another site, then you can have a 02 as well, and that is something that we can get to and rename at another point. But now we want to attach the unique ID to each of the sites. So let's do this. So what we do is we're going to say unique identifier. So we go vector, join attributes by location. So we got the input layer is identifier. Is our new site, and then identifier. We're going to just take the attributes of the first one that it comes across, and at intersection is fine, and we only want a temporary layer. We can run that. Shouldn't take too long. I'll just wait for that to run out, and maybe in the meantime I can show you where we sort of came up with these numbers or the unique identifier. So we started out with the province. This is the I guess the initial or draft version of what this ID was going to be, and we've got a province. We initially said we were going to use the cluster number as well, then our service area hexagonal grid. This is the new one which we've created based on the parent cell, or the 16 kilometer square grid, and then the 1 to 64 cells, and then this is our new number which we've created. So that's kind of where we were going initially with it. And then we dropped the cluster ID. John mentioned that if you do decide to edit your clusters, you don't want to get to the point where you have to then go and re-edit all of the IDs. So that was a good reason to drop the cluster ID out of this unique identifier. So it ends up looking something like this. CIBA2. Okay, so that's just to show you where each of those segments or portions of that ID come from. And there's my site ID. Okay, so let's see how we do that. So what we've done is we've assigned data by location. That's run out. So I can close that. And we should have a join layer. And if we open up that join layer, we'll have our wells, okay, with 0 and 1, and then our new identifier. Okay, so we've assigned that to that. So now all we need to do, using a unique number, which is this ID here, we're going to join those two together. So I'll go properties, join. I'm going to join my join layer to my on ID. On ID, we can just use that default prefix. We'll say OK. Now if I open up my site ID, we've joined those extra layers. Now we need to calculate the actual site ID. So it's a case of going into my calculator, and I want to go site ID is the one I'm updating. I'm using the fields of identifier. Okay, so now that's been, remember that join came from the identifier layer that we created, and then we overlapped it by assigning data by location. So we're going to say concatenate, and then inside semi-inverted commas we'll just put a little dash, and then concatenate again, only one of those, and our number. So what was it called? It was num ID, which is just num. Okay, and there's our unique number. Okay, so it's a bit of a process, but it's a fairly straightforward one. So now what we can do is we can break all that. We can break that join. We'll just stop editing, and then just delete this if we need to. And now we have our site ID, and this will be unique for each of those sites, as long as there's only one well point within, well, there could be two, but if there's two, the second one would be 02 and 01, and that would still make it unique. Okay, so before I end this video, I just want to show you what it might look like if you have two editing sessions. So if we stopped editing the night before and we came back and then wanted to add a few more sites, let's add 3 more sites to this cell here. So let's come in here and add a new site. So I'm going to select my new sites, start editing, and I'm going to add a value there. I'm going to assume that our confidence is high. Oops, I think it was lowercase. High. Okay. And then let's say, for instance, this was a really good opportunity to have another well point. So we're going to have 2 well points within one cell. So in this instance, where our number ID says 01 is a default, we just want to add another one. So we'll say OK. So now I've got 2 inside there. Okay, and so that is 4 now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just add another one somewhere out here. Let's go over here, shall we say. Okay. Alright. So then what you'll need to do is, first of all, we just need to update the unique identifier so that we can run a join to the next layer we're going to create. So I'm just going to use the @rowNumber command. So I'm updating the ID field. I'm just going to go @rowNumber. There we go. So now that is unique, so we can save that. And maybe I should just add these values as well. Let's just call this medium, and I don't know, let's just call this high as well. Okay. Alright, so what we'll do then is we'll do that join as we had before. So it's join attributes by location. We're joining to the new site, and we're using from the identifier, and it's 1 to 1, so we can run that. Okay, there we go, that's finished running. So now we're going to join that layer. So if we just have a quick look at what it looks like, there we go, there's our identifier, which we're going to do. We're going to link on link ID. Okay, so let's do that. So open up my properties. I'll say join to the join layer, ID and ID, or my linking ID or linking field. There we go. Now if we open up this and start editing, we're going to update the site ID. So we use the calculator again, and we're going to say it is that's the one we're updating, and we want to concatenate the identifier code with some text with a little dash, and then we're going to concatenate it with the number. We'll say OK, and there we go. So there we've got our new values. We can save that, close this, and then just break that connection by in this example we can just delete a layer if we want to break the connection. So we'll remove that layer. So that connection should be broken, and you'll see those columns would have disappeared, and our unique identifier, or our site ID, has been updated using the number and then the identifier field. Okay, what else? So that's if you were in a new session and you wanted to continue building your new sites layer. So I guess the other layers you could add to help you decide on where your sites are the new geological layer. Might help you if you overlay that geological layer. You could also maybe add the resource potential layer to give you a best idea of where to position your new well point. Those are two layers you could add to this little query. And then one of the things you'll notice is we've got a column here called households. So how many households are these pumps servicing? Okay, so what we could do is base the number of households serviced by distance. Okay, so the number of households, let's turn on the households layer. You can see there's quite a few households that might be serviced if there was only one pump here, but these 3 pumps here would service quite a considerably less number of households. So maybe this isn't a scenario you would come across, but if we wanted to at a later stage identify which households are being serviced by which pumps, we can do that using another query. Okay, and maybe this isn't something you do initially, but if you wanted to then attach number of households that each pump was servicing, you could do something like this. And I wouldn't recommend running this query for all of the households. So maybe what you could do is select out the households per cluster. So I've just selected a bunch here that are fairly close to these pumps or these well points. And I've tried to run this query with all of the households, and it just took way too long because there's over 1 million households that you guys have captured. So I would recommend doing this for a selected bunch of households, and that's fairly easy. All you do is you just use your cluster area to select the households and create a new shape. So that's if you wanted to do this. So let's say we want to calculate number of households that each pump is servicing. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to use a tool which is, where is it now? We're going to go join. Okay, we're going to join attributes by nearest. Okay. They're going to use the household select. So those are the selected households. And then the input layer is going to be new sites. Okay. Then it wants to know which field we are going to attach based on how close it is. So we're going to use site ID. Okay. And then the join field prefix is fine. Then we're going to go minimum distance. Okay, so maximum distance. So we're assuming that if we don't want people to walk more than 1.75 kilometers or 2.5 kilometers or whatever it is. So let's go 1.75 kilometers is the distance we are expecting people to walk to get their water. We'll set that. Is there anything else I need to set? I think I can just run this now. So we're going to run that. So what it does is it creates a new layer of all your households, and then in that layer it's got the ID that it is servicing. So there's the ID. So you'll see what happens if I color up on that ID. So this is just to show you what that process just did. So I'm going to remove this. I'm going to change this to categorized, and then go site ID, classify. Okay, so each household will be a different color depending on which pump it is closest to within that 1.75 kilometer radius. So that's what it looks like. So because these are clustered close to each other, you can see that these people are colored differently, or these households are colored differently to these households. Okay, so even though, I mean, they're very close, they're still closer to that one. So that's what having clustered pumps might have on the serviced people. Okay, so then we're going to see that there are, since we haven't worked in this cluster yet, or in this cell yet, these households would walk 1.75 kilometers to that particular pump, or the tank that's on that pump. Okay, so there we go. So now what I want to do is I want to get how many households are being serviced by that pump. So I'm going to use a little statistics tool. And where is it? Let's just see if it's count. Okay, it's this one here. Statistics by category. So I'm going to use my joined layer. I'm going to count on site ID. And let's just do the same one again, site ID. Okay, I'm going to create a temporary table. So I can close this. I'll open up my temporary table. And what we've got here is we've got the site ID, which is unique, and then the count. So this count will be the number of households, or the number of points that that are from that original, which is it, joined layer. So what you could then do is you then join this back to this. So we'll see if that, maybe need to remove the original join. Oh, it's gone already. So it's a new join, and it's a join from a statistics by category, and it's by site ID to site ID. Okay, okay. Open up this layer, open up the attribute table, sorry, and then you'll see that there's a count. Where is it? Statistics by count. So that's the number of households. So we can populate that. So we update households with that new joined field called count. Save that, close that, and then deselect. So what we can do is just, let's just kill these joins. I'll just remove, actually no, I don't have to. I'll just remove the joins from their properties. Okay, and now if we open up that attribute table, we'll have number of households serviced. Alright. And that's how you might assign number of households serviced per pump at the end of the day. Quite a simple process, but quite useful at the end of the day. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to show you. That last section that I showed you is maybe something we'd do down the line. We wouldn't necessarily do when you're first setting up where the pumps should go, but it might help at some point if you want to reposition or position the pumps to see how many people are being serviced, or how many households are being serviced. So I think, basically this video was to try and get your feedback on that. I know I kind of packed a lot in there, so if you do go through this video, maybe just jot down a few things and see if you're happy that I'm on the right track, and maybe we can take it from there. Otherwise, thanks for listening. We'll chat soon. Cheers.